The wind howled across the open prairie like a ghost refusing to rest. Jake Hartley sat tall on his horse, eyes scanning the horizon beneath the brim of his dusty hat. The canyon ahead was narrow, perfect for an ambush. He gripped his rifle tightly, muscles tense. Jake wasn't just any cowboy. He had once been a soldier, a husband, even a father for 10 short minutes. His wife had died during childbirth, and their baby didn't last the night. Since then, Jake had roamed the wilderness like a ghost of his former self, avoiding people, talking only to his horses, and drowning memories in cheap whiskey. But today, something felt different. He'd been tracking a group of horse thieves who'd stolen from his land. The prints were fresh, leading into a narrow canyon. His instincts screamed that someone was watching. He dismounted, crouched low, and crept forward, rifle raised. He expected a fight, he expected danger, but what he found instead stopped him cold. A woman, barefoot, hair matted with dirt and leaves, was crouching behind a large boulder. She wasn't holding a weapon, just hiding. When she saw him, she froze, eyes wide with terror. Jake pointed the rifle straight at her chest. "Stand up," he ordered. Slowly she rose, trembling. "I'm not one of them," she said quickly, voice shaking. "I didn't steal your horses." Jake's eyes narrowed. "Then what are you doing here?" "I was running. I escaped from my tribe. They want me to marry someone I hate." Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. Her face was too strong for that, sun-darkened, hardened by life, but there was something fierce in her eyes. Jake didn't lower the rifle. She raised her hands slowly, pleading. Then she said something that made his heart stop. "Don't shoot, cowboy," she whispered. "Let me live, and I'll give you a family." His finger twitched on the trigger. That word, family, hit him like a punch to the gut. "I didn't ask for one," he said flatly. "No," she replied, "but you need one." He almost pulled the trigger out of habit, because kindness was foreign to him now, but her voice was soft. Her eyes weren't begging. They were offering something. Hope, maybe. Redemption. Jake lowered the rifle, but just a little. "Who are you?" "My name is Nita. I'm Apache. I didn't want to marry a cruel war chief. I ran away 2 nights ago. If they find me, they'll kill me." Jake scanned the canyon walls. He didn't see anyone, but something about her story felt too convenient. "Why should I believe you?" She hesitated, then slowly pulled something from her worn dress, a small leather-wrapped pouch. She opened it and took out a necklace with a single eagle feather and turquoise bead. "My mother gave me this before she died. She said to only give it to someone who might protect me when I couldn't protect myself." She held it out. Jake didn't take it. "Why would you trust a man pointing a gun at you?" She looked at him steadily. "Because you haven't shot me yet." Jake sighed and finally lowered his rifle. He wasn't sure why, but something in him shifted. Maybe it was the way her voice sounded more like a vow than a plea. Maybe it was the way she didn't flinch, even when death stared her in the face. "You're coming with me," he said gruffly. "Try anything. You won't get another chance." Nita nodded. "Understood." They rode together through the canyon as night began to fall. Jake offered her his coat, but she refused. She didn't speak much, but when she did, it was quiet and careful, like someone who had never been allowed to talk freely. At his ranch, nestled near a dry creek bed and surrounded by hills, Jake led her into the old cabin. It was plain, with a single bed, a table, and a fireplace. "You can sleep by the fire," he said. She curled up on the floor without complaint. He couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, rifle in hand, watching the moonlight dance across the prairie. Who was this woman really? Why did her words still echo in his mind? "Let me live and I'll give you a family." The next morning, she was already outside gathering wood. She hadn't run. That surprised him. Later, she helped feed the horses. Her hands were calloused. She knew how to saddle a horse, mend leather, and build a fire from damp wood. "Where'd you learn all that?" he asked. "My father taught me," she said, "before he died in a raid." Jake said nothing. He respected silence more than words. Over the next few days, she worked without complaint. She cleaned the cabin, cooked simple meals, even mended a hole in Jake's coat without being asked. Every now and then, she'd hum a soft melody in her language. Jake pretended not to listen. but it calmed him in ways he didn't understand. Still, he kept his distance. She was a stranger, a fugitive. And yet, there was something in her that reminded him of the man he used to be, the man who believed in promises. One evening, while the sun turned the sky to fire, Jake caught her staring at the horizon, face lined with worry. "You expecting someone?" he asked. "My tribe," she said softly. "They'll come eventually." Jake lit his pipe and leaned against the porch. "If they do, I'll be ready." She looked at him, really looked at him, and said, "You're not like other cowboys." "Good," he muttered. "They're mostly idiots." She laughed. It was the first time he'd heard it, and it made his heart ache. As the stars came out, she sat on the porch beside him. "You don't talk much," she said. "Nothing worth saying." She looked at him again. "One day you will." That night, as Jake lay awake in bed, her voice returned to him. "Let me live and I'll give you a family." He didn't know what kind of promise that was, madness or something sacred. But he knew one thing. For the first time in years, he didn't want to be alone anymore. And that terrified him more than any bullet ever could. 3 weeks passed. The days rolled by slowly, like the prairie wind that rustled the wheat around Jake's ranch. Each morning brought a strange, quiet comfort. Nita had become part of the place, her footsteps in the garden, the smell of herbs she boiled for tea, the sound of her voice humming by the barn. Jake hadn't expected this. Not the warmth, not the peace, not the way her presence filled the hollowness inside him like rain soaking cracked earth. Still, he remained cautious. The thought of her tribe coming for her hovered over him like a thundercloud. One evening, as the sky turned a burnt orange, Nita stood on the porch staring toward the hills. Jake joined her. "They'll come soon," she said softly. "I feel it." "You can leave if you want," Jake said, his voice low. "Take a horse, head east." She turned to him. "You want me to leave?" He hesitated. "No." It was the first honest thing he'd said all day. "I won't run anymore," she said. "I ran once, but this feels like home." Jake looked at her, his heart wrestling with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. "I still don't understand why you said that," he finally asked. "Back in the canyon, about giving me a family." She smiled faintly. "I saw it in your eyes. You'd lost something, maybe everything. I thought maybe I could help you find it again, and I wanted to live." He nodded. "You did more than that." That night, while they sat by the fire, a soft knock rattled the door. Jake grabbed his rifle instantly. Nita froze. Another knock, this time louder. Jake moved to the door, rifle ready. He opened it slowly, and 3 figures stood outside, Apache warriors. Their faces were painted for travel, and each held a spear or bow. The tallest one stepped forward. "We've come for the woman." Jake didn't blink. "She stays." "She ran from her promise," the warrior said coldly. "Our chief demands her return. She is to be his bride." Jake stood tall. "She's free now. She is Apache, she is ours. She's under my roof now, and no one takes what's mine." A tense silence fell between them. Then one of the younger warriors drew his bow halfway. Jake cocked the rifle. "Don't," he growled. "I won't miss." The older warrior raised his hand. "Enough!" Then he looked at Nita, who had come to stand behind Jake. "Is this your choice?" he asked her. "To stay with him?" Nita stepped forward. Her voice was steady. "Yes, he respects me. He doesn't own me. He doesn't beat me. I choose him." The warriors looked at one another. The elder gave a solemn nod. "Then you are no longer one of us. Walk a different path, Nita." Then they disappeared into the darkness without another word. Jake slowly closed the door. He turned to her. "You okay?" Nita nodded, but her hands were trembling. He put a hand on her shoulder, awkward at first, then gently. "You're safe now," he said. She looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. "Thank you for choosing me." Days passed, and something shifted between them. Jake started talking more about his wife, the child he'd lost, the dreams he gave up. Nita listened, never interrupting, never judging. In turn, she shared her stories, of running barefoot through the forests as a child, of losing her mother, of being promised to a man who never loved her. They were 2 broken souls who'd found shelter in each other's presence. One morning, while feeding the chickens, Nita paused and clutched her stomach. Jake rushed to her. "You hurt?" She looked up at him slowly and smiled. "No, just surprised." He blinked. "What?" She took his hand and placed it gently on her belly. "I'm pregnant." The world seemed to tilt. Jake stood there, stunned, like the breath had been stolen from his lungs. A family? That promise, the one she whispered at gunpoint, had come true. "You sure?" he finally whispered. She nodded. "I've seen the signs before. It's early, but yes." Jake sank to his knees, hands still on her belly. His voice cracked. "I don't know how to be a father." "You'll learn," she said softly, "and you won't do it alone." Seasons changed. The ranch grew livelier. Nita painted the walls of the old cabin with native patterns. She planted corn and herbs beside the porch. Jake built a second room with his own hands so the baby would have a place to sleep. The townsfolk still whispered, but fewer than before. Some brought baby blankets or warm soup. The saloon owner even gave Jake a bottle of whiskey, but Jake didn't touch it. Not anymore. The night Nita went into labor, a storm raged outside. Thunder boomed and wind screamed through the cracks in the cabin. Jake panicked. He had no doctor, no midwife, but Nita was strong. She screamed through the pain, gripping Jake's hand until dawn broke. And then the cry of new life echoed through the cabin. A baby girl. Nita held her close, eyes filled with tears. Jake sat beside her, staring at the tiny bundle wrapped in soft cloth. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She's ours," Nita said. He kissed her forehead, then looked down at his daughter. "I never thought I'd get this," he said. "Not after everything." Nita leaned her head on his shoulder. "You didn't shoot," she whispered. "And you gave me a family." Months passed, and the ranch grew into a home filled with life, laughter, hope. Jake would rise early, holding the baby in his arms as he watched the sunrise. Sometimes he'd sit on the porch beside Nita and ask her to hum that soft melody again. He still carried his rifle, but now he used it only to protect what truly mattered. A promise made under a desert sky had changed 2 lives forever, because sometimes all it takes to heal a broken soul is a single whisper at the edge of death.